You defend the motorcycle before you even realize you are defending yourself. The machine cannot feel insulted, yet the comment lands personally. That reaction reveals more than affection, because some drivers give vehicles human-like agency and unusual emotional importance. Psychologists call this anthropomorphism, assigning human qualities, motives, moods, or personality to something non-human. It is a normal mental tendency, and some people do it more readily than others. A nickname alone proves nothing darker. Plenty of enthusiasts maintain carefully and joke about a difficult cold start. That does not automatically mean they humanize the vehicle. Care can stay practical, while humor remains playful. The pattern changes when one personality keeps explaining everything. The vehicle becomes stubborn, loyal during a journey, offended after neglect, or grateful after repair. Mechanical events begin to sound like social behavior. The first real tendency is a stronger readiness to see a mind where no human mind exists. You know the machine is not biologically alive, but human language still becomes the easiest way to read it. Researchers describe several routes into anthropomorphism. Human knowledge is readily available. You understand anger, loyalty, hesitation, confidence, and betrayal. So those familiar ideas can be projected onto an object whose behavior is harder to interpret. This does not mean you are confused. Your mind may simply prefer an intentional story over a cold mechanical description. The interesting question is not whether you know better. It is what that story does for you. Imagine a rough start in the morning. One owner hears a battery, fuel, or temperature problem. Another says the vehicle is angry, tired, or refusing to cooperate. The second explanation turns uncertainty into something emotionally legible. Experimental research found that a stronger desire to understand or master an unpredictable, non-human agent can increase anthropomorphism. Humanizing that object can then make its behavior easier to understand. That is not a diagnosis of a controlling personality. It is a clue about predictability. Giving the machine a mood can protect competence because moods feel interpretable. A complicated fault becomes a familiar kind of resistance, and familiar resistance feels easier to manage than unexplained behavior. This is the first deeper payoff. Some drivers humanize vehicles because personality makes the machine feel readable. The story creates order. Yet predictability still does not explain why a scratch, an insult, or a proposed sale can feel personal. For that, the boundary between possession and identity must move. Consumer research describes meaningful possessions as parts of the extended self. An object can begin carrying pieces of who you believe you are. A vehicle can appear across different versions of your life. The same machine may sit inside photographs, journeys, repairs, routines, achievements, losses, and private moments that would otherwise feel disconnected. The vehicle then stops being only a symbol. It becomes a thread. When you look at it, you may not merely see paint, metal, and mileage. Instead, you see who you were when you first earned it. That helps explain why criticism can cross the boundary. Someone thinks they are mocking an old motorcycle. You hear them dismissing your taste, competence, history, or loyalty. The object receives the words, but your identity absorbs the impact. This attachment is not automatically vanity or materialism. A modest machine can hold more identity than an expensive one. The weight comes from meaning, not price, and often grows through repeated experience. Now, the bond becomes more serious. Research on loved possessions suggests that they can help people organize fragmented experiences into a coherent life story. The object stays stable while jobs, places, relationships, and roles change. That is why the garage can feel different after a hard day. The vehicle does not need to solve anything. Its presence may simply reconnect you with competence, continuity, or a version of yourself that still feels familiar. One experiment found that people higher in trait anthropomorphism reported greater security after being reminded of a favorite belonging. That does not make the object a replacement partner. It suggests that cherished things can sometimes provide a small sense of stability. The personal reaction to damage or separation begins to make sense. The machine may be carrying memories and identity, while also supporting emotional continuity. When it is threatened, more than transportation feels at risk. This is where an easy, dark explanation becomes tempting. People may say anyone who speaks to a vehicle must be lonely. Social disconnection has increased anthropomorphism in some studies, but the broader evidence across object attachment is inconsistent. Loneliness can contribute for some people in some circumstances. That is neither a universal answer nor permission to reduce every attached driver to someone who cannot connect with human beings. The direct vehicle research is more revealing. In one limited study of 204 undergraduates, drivers described their personalities and those assigned to their vehicles. The profiles were related, but distinguishable. That matters because the vehicle was not simply a copied version of the owner. Drivers could construct a separate character for the machine. The vehicle might be described as tougher, calmer, more temperamental, or more dependable than the person describing it. The study also produced an important correction. The basic decision to anthropomorphize a vehicle did not itself distinguish aggressive driving measures. Naming the machine was not the aggressive signal. Humanizing did not prove dangerous behavior. The content and function of the projected personality matter more than the nickname. A vehicle called stubborn for comic effect is not equivalent to one whose imagined loyalty protects the owner from challenges to identity. Now the traits can be seen together. First comes a stronger readiness to perceive human-like agency. Then comes its usefulness, because intention makes unpredictable behavior understandable and gives the owner a sense of mastery. Identity adds another layer. The machine carries taste, competence, memories, and personal history. Emotional security adds one more. The vehicle can become a steady presence, linking the owner to a valued version of the self. Here is the main answer. Drivers who treat vehicles like human beings may be turning the machine into a controllable social mirror, one that carries predictability, identity, memory, and emotional security without possessing a human mind. That changes the meaning of the bond. A mechanical failure can feel like betrayal because the imagined character has broken its role. An insult may land personally because the vehicle holds identity. Selling it can resemble removing a chapter. None of this proves unhealthy attachment. Humor, design, habit, affection, and enthusiast culture can fully explain many cases. A darker interpretation becomes plausible only when related behaviors appear together and serve the same function. Motorcyclists also face a stereotype problem. A 2024 survey found that car drivers describe the typical motorcyclist more negatively than motorcyclists describe themselves. Self-reports have limits, but the contrast shows how quickly outsiders can turn identity into caricature. That is why labels such as narcissistic, reckless, antisocial, or damaged do not belong here. The evidence does not establish those traits merely because someone names a motorcycle, protects it, or speaks about it affectionately. A fair interpretation needs a pattern cluster. The first marker is consistent agency. The vehicle is repeatedly given motives, moods, loyalty, resentment, or intention across different situations, not only during a playful moment. The second marker is identity defensiveness. Criticism, damage, or mechanical failure feels less like harm to a possession and more like a wound to personal competence, taste, history, or standing. The third marker is emotional dependence. Contact with the vehicle becomes a primary route to calm, confidence, continuity, or belonging. The cluster suggests a possible function. It does not prove a hidden motive or clinical condition. The sharper contradiction is that the relationship feels independent even though nearly every part of the vehicle's personality is interpreted by the owner. The machine cannot judge you, yet you can still feel understood by it. That may explain why the bond feels safe. The vehicle can seem loyal without choosing to leave, challenging your account, or changing its view of you. This remains plausible for some people, not a verdict on everyone. Return to the opening insult. The motorcycle never heard it. Your reaction showed where the machine ended and your identity began. That boundary, rather than the nickname, is what makes the behavior psychologically revealing. The self-check is simple. Does the bond expand your life, deepen competence, preserve memory, and add enjoyment? Or has it become the only reliable path back to calm, confidence, continuity, or belonging? The personality traits are not one dark type. They are a stronger anthropomorphic tendency, deeper identity attachment, a preference for psychological predictability, and a readiness to store emotional meaning inside a vehicle. You do not have to stop loving the machine. Simply notice when caring for it becomes relying on that bond to protect the self from ordinary uncertainty.